Martin Shkreli is an American former hedge fund manager and convicted felon. Shkreli is the co-founder of the hedge funds Elia Capital, MSMB Capital Management, and MSMB Healthcare, the co-founder and former chief executive officer of the pharmaceutical firms Retrofin and Turing Pharmaceuticals, and the former CEO of startup software company Godel Systems, which he founded in August 2016. In September 2015, Shkreli was widely criticized when Turing obtained the manufacturing license for the antiparasitic drug Daraprim and raised its price by 5,455%. In 2017, Shkreli was charged and convicted in federal court on 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of conspiring to commit securities fraud, unrelated to the Daraprim controversy. He was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison and up to $7.4 million in fines. In the civil case, he was fined a further $64.6 million to be given to victims nationwide. Prior to May 2022, Shkreli was held at the low-security federal prison in Allenwood, Pennsylvania, with an expected release date in September 2022. On May 18, 2022, it was announced that Shkreli had been released early. Early life. Shkreli was born in Coney Island Hospital in the New York City borough of Brooklyn on March 17, 1983, to Albanian immigrant parents. His parents were Roman Catholic, and he said his religion has been a guiding post for him, although he does not believe in God. His parents immigrated to the United States and worked as janitors. He, his 2 sisters, and his brother grew up in a working-class community in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. By most accounts, Shkreli was raised Catholic and attended Sunday school as a child. Shkreli attended Hunter College High School. Sources differ on whether Shkreli graduated from Hunter or whether he was expelled before his senior year and received the credits necessary for his high school diploma through City-as School High School. He ended up in a program that placed him in an internship at Wall Street hedge fund Kramer, Berkowitz and Company when he was 17. Shkreli received a bachelor's degree in business administration from Barrack College in 2004. Shkreli told Vanity Fair that he developed an interest in chemistry when a family member suffered from treatment-resistant depression. Career. During Shkreli's time at Kramer, Berkowitz and Company, he recommended short-selling the stock of Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, a biotech company testing a weight loss drug. When its price dropped in accordance with Shkreli's prediction, Kramer's hedge fund profited. Shkreli's prediction drew the attention of the Securities and Exchange Commission, which investigated Shkreli's knowledge about the stock but was unable to prove wrongdoing on his part. MSMB Capital Management. After 4 years as an associate at Kramer Berkowitz, Shkreli worked as a financial analyst for Intrepid Capital Management and UBS Wealth Management. He then started his first hedge fund, Elia Capital Management, in 2006. In 2007, Lehman Brothers sued Elia in New York State Court for failing to cover a put option transaction in which Shkreli bet the wrong way on a broad market decline. When stocks rose, Shkreli did not have the money to make the bank whole. In October 2007, Lehman Brothers won a $2.3 million default judgment against Shkreli and Elia, but Lehman collapsed before it could collect on the ruling. In September 2009, Shkreli started MSMB Capital Management, which took its name from the initials of the 2 founding portfolio managers, Shkreli and his childhood friend, Marek Bistek. Shkreli and Bistek shorted biotech companies, then described flaws in the companies on stock trading chat rooms. On February 1, 2011, in a naked short sale on an account it held with Merrill Lynch, MSMB Capital sold short 32 million shares of Oryx-Igen Therapeutics stock at about $2.50 per share the day after its price plunged from $9.09, when the Food and Drug Administration declined to approve the drug naltrexone/bupropion. The stock price rebounded, MSMB could not cover the position, although it had told Merrill Lynch that it could. Merrill Lynch lost $7 million on the trade and MSMB capital was virtually wiped out. Retrofin's 2015 SEC complaint contended Shkreli had created MSMB Healthcare and Retrofin so that he could continue trading after MSMB Capital became insolvent and to create an asset that he might be able to use to placate his MSMB Capital investors. In 2011, Shkreli filed requests with the FDA to reject a new cancer diagnostic device from Navidea Biopharmaceuticals and an inhalable insulin therapy from Mankind Corporation while publicly short-selling both companies' stocks, the values of which dropped after Shkreli's interventions. The companies had difficulty launching the products as a result, although the FDA ultimately approved both. In 2011, MSMB made an unsolicited cash bid for AMAG Pharmaceuticals at a price of $378 million. Matthew Herper of Forbes wrote that the attempted hostile takeover was done for the specific purpose of firing the company's management and stopping a proposed merger with Allos Therapeutics. When the merger plans stopped, so did Shkreli. Retrofin. Shkreli founded Retrofin in 2011 under the MSMB umbrella and ran it as a portfolio company with an emphasis on biotechnology, to create treatments for rare diseases. Retrofin's board decided to replace Shkreli in September 2014, and he resigned from the company the following month. He was replaced by Stephen Aselage. During Shkreli's tenure as CEO, the company's employees used alias Twitter accounts to make gangster rap jokes and encourage short selling of other biotech stocks. After Shkreli's departure, Retrofin filed a $65 million lawsuit against him in August 2015, claiming that he had breached his duty of loyalty to the biopharmaceutical company in a long-running dispute over his use of company funds and committed stock trading irregularities and other violations of securities rules. The lawsuit alleged that Shkreli had threatened and harassed a former MSMB employee and his family. Shkreli and some of his business associates have been under criminal investigation by the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York since January 2015. Shkreli invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in order to avoid testifying during civil depositions. Shkreli's name is on 2 patents held by Retrofin for drugs to treat PKAN. In November 2020, Eric Dube, Retrofin's new chief executive, announced the company would be rebranded as Travere Therapeutics Incorporated in an effort to further distance the company from Shkreli, and said the company is no longer working on treatments for the disease from which the company takes its name. Views on Shkreli's leadership. Thiola price hike controversy. Turing Pharmaceuticals. Shkreli founded Turing Pharmaceuticals in February 2015, after his departure from Retrofin. He launched Turing with 3 drugs in development acquired from Retrofin: an intranasal version of ketamine for depression, an intranasal version of oxytocin, and Vecamil for hypertension. Shkreli set a business strategy for Turing, to obtain licenses on out-of-patent medicines, and re-evaluate the pricing of each in pursuit of windfall profits for the new company, without the need to develop and bring its own drugs to market. As markets for out-of-patent drugs are often small, and obtaining regulatory approval to manufacture a generic version is expensive, Turing calculated that with closed distribution for the product and no competition, it could set high prices. Daraprim price hike controversy. Phoenix's IFTC v Vira Pharmaceuticals/I. None. Calobios Pharmaceuticals. In November 2015, an investor group led by Shkreli acquired a majority stake in Calobios Pharmaceuticals, a biopharmaceutical company based in South San Francisco. Shkreli was named CEO of the company and also planned to continue in the role of CEO of Turing Pharmaceuticals. After his December 2015 arrest, Calobios Pharmaceuticals terminated him as CEO. On December 29, 2015, Calobios filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This followed Nasdaq delisting its shares, and the resignation of 2 directors. Godel Systems, Inc. Shkreli founded Godel Systems in August 2016 as a professional software company that aims to be the leading information provider of data, workflow, and communications solutions for financial, law, and scientific professionals. By February 2017, Godel Systems was looking to raise $1 million through a debt offering, and had raised $50,000 out of the $1 million in debt it began issuing in mid-January 2017, according to regulatory filings. Ralph Holzman, a former senior engineer at Twitter, is the firm's chief technology officer. Druglike and Martin Shkreli Inu coin. Following his release from prison, in 2022 a planned software platform named Druglike controlled by Shkreli was announced with a stated aim of supporting the development of new pharmaceutical drugs. An apparently related cryptocurrency project, the Martin Shkreli Inu coin, had been launched but in August lost 90% of its value after a wallet belonging to Shkreli sold its holdings. An account believed to belong to Shkreli claimed, in explanation, to have been hacked. Testimony before Congress. Shkreli was subpoenaed to appear before the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform of the U.S. House of Representatives to answer questions about the Daraprim price increase. Shkreli's efforts to quash the subpoena were unsuccessful. On February 4, 2016, Shkreli appeared before the House Committee, along with Nancy Retzlaff, the Chief Commercial Officer of Turing, and Howard B. Schiller, the interim CEO of Valent. Accompanied by his attorney Benjamin Brafman, Shkreli invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination in response to every question from committee members except for 2, one from Representative Trey Gowdy to confirm the pronunciation of his last name, and another from Representative Elijah Cummings to affirm he was listening. Shkreli also refused to answer even seemingly trivial questions outside the subject matter of the hearing, including those pertaining to his purchase of a Wu-Tang Clan album. Following Representative Elijah Cummings's rebuke of Shkreli, Chairman Jason Chaffetz dismissed Shkreli from the hearing. Criminal prosecution and conviction. On December 17, 2015, Shkreli was arrested by the FBI after a federal indictment in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York was filed, charging him with securities fraud. The charges were filed after an investigation into his tenure at MSMB Capital Management and Retrofin. U.S. Attorney Robert Capers said, Shkreli essentially ran his company like a Ponzi scheme where he used each subsequent company to pay off defrauded investors from the prior company. Federal prosecutors said that Shkreli and CO defendant, Evan Griebel, engaged in multiple schemes to ensnare investors through a web of lies and deceit. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Shkreli said that he was targeted by law enforcement for his price hikes of the drug Daraprim and his flamboyant personality. In early 2016, Shkreli retained criminal defense attorney Benjamin Brafman to defend him. Due to Shkreli's notoriety and overwhelmingly negative public opinion, it was difficult to select an unbiased jury. At his 2017 trial, Shkreli said that none of his investors actually lost money and thus his actions did not constitute a crime. Shkreli's frequent criticisms of the federal prosecutors in New York's Eastern District, whom he called junior varsity compared to their counterparts in the Southern District across the East River, both on his Facebook streaming video feed and in the hallways of the courthouse, led those prosecutors to request that Judge Kiyoe Matsumoto issue a gag order to prevent what they called a campaign of disruption. Brafman said in response that his client was responding to baiting from the media and was also suffering from extreme anxiety because of his situation. Matsumoto ordered Shkreli not to speak with reporters, either in the courthouse or its immediate vicinity. On August 4, 2017, the trial jury found Shkreli guilty on 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit securities fraud, and not guilty on 5 other counts. Shkreli said he was delighted with the outcome and described his prosecution as a witch hunt of epic proportions. On September 13, 2017, his bail was revoked following a Facebook post offering $5,000 for a strand of Hillary Clinton's hair, which the judge perceived as solicitation to assault, which is not protected under the First Amendment. Shkreli's post was preceded by others that suggested he might have plans to clone Hillary Clinton. Shkreli said that his post was satire, and his lawyer described it as tasteless but not a threat. Shkreli edited the post to add a disclaimer that it was satire, and later said he did this minutes after publication. Shkreli apologized for the post. He was sent to the Metropolitan Detention Center, Brooklyn, while awaiting sentencing. On March 9, 2018, Shkreli was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Shkreli appealed the conviction, but in 2019, an appeals court unanimously upheld the jury verdict. The original judgment remained in effect. Shkreli was required to continue to serve his 7-year sentence and forfeit more than $7.3 million in assets. The panel of judges issued the ruling just 3 weeks after hearing arguments in the appeal, rather than the normal period of months. The ruling was also unusually short, spanning only 7 pages. Forfeitures. On March 5, 2018, Shkreli was ordered to forfeit nearly $7.4 million in assets. The court ordered that if Shkreli had insufficient cash to fulfill the forfeiture order, his assets, including a piece of art by Pablo Picasso, would be sold to do so. Shkreli purchased the 31-track Wu-Tang Clan album Once Upon a Time in Shaolin at an auction in 2015 for around $2 million, as well as the then unreleased Lil Wayne album Tha Carter V. In April 2018, he was ordered to pay $388,000 in restitution. In July 2021, the United States government auctioned off the Wu-Tang Clan album bought by Shkreli for an undisclosed amount to an undisclosed buyer. Jacqueline M. Cajulis, the acting United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, said Shkreli has been held accountable and paid the price for lying and stealing from investors to enrich himself, and with today's sale of this one-of-a-kind album, his payment of the forfeiture is now complete. Statements at sentencing. During his sentencing, Judge Kiyo Matsumoto said Shkreli seemed genuinely remorseful regarding his egregious multitude of lies, but said he had repeatedly minimized his misconduct. Shkreli, who reportedly cried as he gave his statement to the court, stated, "I was never motivated by money." Incarceration. Shkreli was federal inmate number 87850-053 and was first held at the Metropolitan Detention Center, Brooklyn, prior to being transferred to federal prison. On March 27, 2018, it was reported that Judge Kiyo Matsumoto agreed to recommend Shkreli serve his prison sentence at the minimum security federal camp at USP Canaan, which he had previously requested. On April 18, 2018, Shkreli was transferred from Metropolitan Detention Center, Brooklyn, to FCI Fort Dix after his request to serve at USP Canaan was denied. As of July 2020, Shkreli was serving his sentence at FCC Allenwood. On September 6, 2019, several media outlets reported that Shkreli had leveled a lawsuit in a Brooklyn court claiming he had been fraudulently persuaded by a former investor in his Elia Capital Fund to sign a promissory note that left him owing $420,000 to the man's father. Also in 2019, he was transferred to solitary confinement for a time, after prison authorities discovered he was using a contraband smartphone to conduct business from prison. Shkreli made a request for compassionate release on April 22, 2020. In his request, he said he should be allowed to live at his then-fiancée's apartment in New York City. Her name was redacted from the copies released to the press, but she later identified herself as former Bloomberg reporter Christy Smythe. His request also stated his firm needed him to develop a remedy for COVID-19. In denying the request, Judge Matsumoto characterized Shkreli's request as an instance of delusional self-aggrandizing behavior. On May 18, 2022, Shkreli was released from prison. This decision was made after he completed all programs that allowed for his prison sentence to be shortened, according to Shkreli's lawyer, Benjamin Brafman. He was moved to a halfway house where he would reside until September 2022. Civil penalties. In December 2016, the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance issued a tax warrant for $1.26 million for unpaid taxes owed by Shkreli. After Shkreli made partial payments, the state recouped another $134,500 from Shkreli by seizing and auctioning off an Enigma machine for $65,000, a manuscript signed by Isaac Newton, a letter from Charles Darwin, and another letter written by English mathematician and writer Ada Lovelace. On April 23, 2018, it was reported that in court filings New York's Attorney General had asked Judge Matsumoto for priority on more than $480,000 in court-ordered forfeitures, to recover additional unpaid taxes and penalties owed to the state, over the federal government's claims for Shkreli's forfeited assets. Prior to Shkreli's conviction, the state of New York had been aggressively attempting to collect the tax debts from Shkreli and had already seized and auctioned off several items, including the rare Nazi Enigma code machine. At the same time, the Securities and Exchange Commission announced that Shkreli had agreed to an order that would bar him from the securities industry in order to settle a pending SEC administrative action against him. However, Shkreli is eligible to apply for readmission to the industry subject to applicable laws and regulations governing the process. The Federal Trade Commission and 7 states California, Illinois, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia filed a civil lawsuit against Shkreli. In the lawsuit, Judge Denise Cote of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York issued an order on January 14, 2022, that directed Shkreli to return $64.6 million in wrongfully obtained profits. The money is to be distributed to victims nationwide. The court found that Shkreli had violated federal and state law through an anti-competitive scheme to delay the entry of generic competition for at least 18 months and banned Shkreli from the pharmaceutical industry for life. On February 23, 2022, U.S. District Judge Kiyo Matsumoto of the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York ordered Shkreli to pay a $1.39 million fine for violating securities laws between 2009 and 2014 and banned from serving as an officer or a director of any publicly traded company for life.